Give it a second here. Awesome. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome, welcome. As you're joining us, go ahead and drop in the chat where you're joining us from. We love to see all over the world, honestly, where folks are joining us.
I know. That's not even fair to say good morning. For some people, it's good evening, good afternoon.
Yep. Welcome, welcome. Hello, Allison. Welcome, everyone.
Ooh, the Netherlands. So fun. It's one of my favorite places to visit.
Is it? I've never been.
Mhm,
Bucket list
mhm.
item for sure.
It's lovely, especially if you love to walk and bike. It's very scenic.
Yes. Yep. Hello from London. It's afternoon in London, right? And almost the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, Stephanie. Hi from Vegas. We were just
Vegas.
in Las Vegas last week. The workshop crew was for the CultureCon conference. We were out there.
Very cool. Yeah, Philadelphia, Rhode Island as well too. Good to see you.
We are so excited to talk all things budget today.
Yes. South Africa. I feel like this is the one I've seen the most, like places all over the map. This is so
Yeah.
cool.
Hello, Heather. Devin, do you want to share your screen? Make sure folks know they're in the right spot here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Welcome, everyone. So exciting seeing all these places.
There we go. All right.
Love it. Hello. If you're here for the How to Build a Comms Budget and Get It Approved event, you're in the right place. We're so excited to chat today. Devin, it's been a minute since you and I have done a webinar together.
It has. It's been a while, and then this is my first time on our brand new platform. I'm loving it so far. It's so cool to be able to not only see all the folks where they're tuning in from, but then their names. I'm really excited for some of these features. This is going to be cool.
Yep. This is our second time on this new platform, so we're trying to make a better experience for attendees, for you guys. So let us know in the chat as we kind of go through this, what your experience is. If you like this new platform, I love it too, because on comments, you can react to comments on here. There's a lot of cool features as well.
Yeah. That's really cool. Really cool.
Very cool. We'll give everyone just a couple more minutes here. Share where you're tuning in from. Hi, Janet from Philly. St. Lucia, nice.
Ooh. Madrid, Michigan. Hi, Jody. Good to see you. Also, while you're joining in the chat, we do have an icebreaker question today, and that is if you could do anything tomorrow and budget was completely off the table, what is something that you would do? I made up this question and I still have to think about it.
If you had a comms wish list, no budget was not an issue, what would you do?
I think I'd probably do full studio production internal podcast, the lights, the camera, all of it, know everything.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
See here, someone said frontline employees. Janet, text to frontline workers. Yes.
I love that.
All employee in-person event celebration. Of course.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Allison, upgrade my workshop plan.
Love it. To keep creative personnel and not lose the creative vibes. Love that. Those are so important.
Absolutely. Well,
Okay, well, I
sweet.
know.
Should we get started?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, let's go ahead and get going. I know folks are still gonna be joining us in the chat, but just want to go ahead and get started to be mindful of everyone's time today. I'm gonna try to get rid of those little pesky black bars. There we go.
There we go.
All right, so let's talk today about how to build and get that comms budget approved. So if you're hearing my voice, if you're seeing that screen, you are in the right place. And while you're in the chat, be sure to take a moment to introduce yourself to someone. You can share your name. You've already been great about sharing where you're tuning in from. You can share LinkedIn handles so that way you can stay connected. Really, this community is full of incredible people and a lot of great connections can be made here. And so let's go ahead and get started. My name is Devin Owens. If we haven't met in person or on LinkedIn yet, I'm the communications manager here at Workshop, and I lead all things internal comms. And I also get to be involved in external events like this one, really working with internal communicators across all sectors, all around the world, really just thinking about how we can level up our skills, boost our confidence, and really get closer to those goals and KPIs that I know that we all have. Later on, you're going to hear from Kelsey, who is our marketing and events manager here at Workshop. Now, if you've been in our community for a while, you've probably seen her promoting all things Brightside, or even some of our other in-person or online events. She is truly the events queen. And if it's your first time joining one of our webinars, I just want to say a special welcome, and we're so glad that you're here. Now, I mentioned already, we're really glad that you're here, and we know that everyone is really, really busy. Everyone is in different time zones, and you have different things that you could be doing, but we're really glad that you're here with us. So thank you for that. And as you're going through this webinar today, we encourage you to drop your questions in the chat. We'll have some time at the end to answer those, and then also share your own experiences and tips. We know certainly a lot, but you all have just as much to add to this conversation. So think of this as like a networking event with other communicators that you can bounce ideas off of. This is kind of an unusual situation. A lot of times we don't get to do that. And so we'll send a follow-up email to everyone after the webinar ends with the link, any resources that we share, and then of course those unanswered questions as well.
Yeah, and make sure we have some good time set aside at the end for some Q&A. So there is the Q&A feature. As we're going through this, drop your questions in there. We'll be sure to dive into everything at the end as well.
Yes. All right, so you might have seen this on social or maybe even land in your inbox, but every year we run an internal communications trend survey, and that's really to get a pulse on how internal communicators are thinking about what's happening across the industry. So just last week, we closed our survey for 2026, and we're already starting to see some really cool results. One stat that stood out to us as Kelsey was diving into this is 57% of internal communicators don't believe that they have a set aside budget for 2026. Okay, 2026 is in like 2 days, right? So even though companies are starting to recognize the impact of internal comms, we're certainly still seeing a gap. And it's really showing how important it is to keep advocating for those sort of resources and support that you need to drive real and meaningful change. So we'll be releasing the full report later on this month, but our goal for the next hour is really simple. It's just to help you walk away feeling more confident about getting a budget. But before we get too deep into things, I would love to hear from you. Share in the chat, what is your biggest obstacle when it comes to getting budget for internal comms? Let's see, now I need to pull up my chat here. All right. Proving ROI. Yep. Just too many other priorities. I hear that and see that a lot, Allison. Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot. I can thumbs these up too. I love this new platform. All right. Well, as you keep sharing, definitely, engage with other people because definitely we're not alone when it comes to all of this. So today, we're really going to just focus on 4 things. The first is how to review your current internal comms strategy and spot what's working and what's not. The second thing is why investing early pays off. This is something I feel really energized and excited to talk about, and how that's going to set you up not just for the rest of the year, but really for on and on after that. The third thing is how to build a case to win leadership buy-in so you're not fighting the same battles over and over. I saw someone mention that in the chat. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about about together is how to advocate for the right tools to actually bring your strategy to life. It's one thing to have it on black and white. It's another to have the tools that you need to actually prove your impact. So here's where we're going to get started. So most companies don't think about internal comms until something starts to break. And honestly, that's okay. If you're here and things are feeling messy, you're like, what in the world is going on? You are not alone. And that's where a lot of teams are when they start to realize that they need a more intentional approach. But here's the upside. Once you start investing in internal comms, even in like small ways, things can start to quickly shift, and we'll prove that in just a little bit. You can start creating clarity where there's been a lot of confusion or messiness or disconnected comms, and you can start building trust where those things have felt scattered or disconnected from your company values. And the most important thing I want y'all to remember is you don't need to like overhaul everything overnight. You just have to start. And it could be a survey, it could be a better send cadence for your updates, even a stronger partnership with leadership. All of those things are steps in the right direction to really start creating some momentum. So it is not too late. If you don't have a budget, that is okay. In fact, this is probably the right time for you to get started. Now, at Workshop, now this section is going to be a little bit weird because we're talking about my role. So I'm like going in the past, but talking about myself. So bear with me. So at Workshop, we decided to invest in internal communications when we were right around 60 employees. There's probably a lot of people that thought that was way too early, but for us, it was the perfect time. We really wanted to model what intentional, transparent internal comms looked like, even when we were small. And the results have been incredible, if I had to say so myself. But basically, it's just created like a shared rhythm across teams and a level of clarity that makes everything easier for your employees just to stay connected and in the know about stuff. So, but before we get there, I want to jump back in time. This is actually a look at our LinkedIn post that our CMO Jamie shared when they opened the role for this very first internal comms hire. Like I said, at the time it was around 60 employees. So some people saw this as like, whoa, that's really early. But we, again, knew that it was the right time for us. And we wanted to build a really strong foundation for internal comms right from the start. And the role gave us the right way to do that very intentionally. There's a couple of things that I want to call out on this post. The first thing is that it reported into marketing. So there was a really strong connection between internal comms and like thoughtful branded strategy as a part that was like very connected to our external work. The next thing was transparency was baked in. From day one, this role had visibility into what teams were working on, and then it was able to share those stories across the company. And I think the last thing, and this is something that I can completely attest to, is the role was celebrated. It wasn't seen as like an extra or nice to have. It was truly treated as essential and just as important as all of the other roles and how we work together overall. This is a section from the job description that Jamie posted. And really, we just knew that this role had to be more than sending updates, right? It had to be about helping us model intentional, clear, human-centered, not humor, human-centered communications, the same that we want like our customers to deliver. And what this made this role especially unique was how visible and cross-functional it was. This person helped shape internal comm strategy, supported product and sales with feedback from the field, and really just played a big part in our external voices too. So things like webinars like this one, conference, podcast interviews, and so on. So another thing to think about here is, yes, it's an internal hire, but how can they help you share your story externally? So if you're thinking about creating a similar role, or you're just like ready to level up what you have, we have a free resource that we've pulled together with internal communications job descriptions for every level. So that's specialist all the way up to like director. That link should be dropping here in the resources for you to check it out. Now that we've got that sort of decided that we want to invest in internal communications early, it's really important to think about not waiting until things get messy or overly complicated, but it's still possible to like get yourself out of that. And the way that you're able to do it is with a clear, proactive strategy. So within just 30 days of hiring our first internal communicator, we did a couple of things. We launched an internal podcast. We ran a full employee survey to all 60 or so employees at the time. time. We had listening sessions across departments and really started to help leadership share updates more consistently. They were sharing things, but it was kind of when they had time or when it made sense for their schedule. And so it gave us some really quick wins for sure, right? Like it's cool to see this list of things, but most importantly, what it gave us was real insight to how people wanted to connect and what they needed to hear more of and where we could do better, right? You all know that when you send out those surveys, while you'll certainly get a lot of 4s and 5s and thumbs up on things, there's probably going to be some honest feedback about consistency, how things are landing, the length, where you're sending it, and so forth. And so it was just really simple, intentional work, and it laid the foundation for better alignment and stronger communication across the board. And again, that investment paid off, not just in like the clarity of what we're doing, but the trust across the company that we're going to be consistent with how we communicate. And so I've shared a little bit about like that cross-functional teamwork, right? And starting early gave us a chance to really do this well. So from day one, I'm going to start speaking in like my tone now. So from day one, I got to work closely with our people ops team, of course, the marketing team and leadership. I was able to align things like language, like how are we talking about the product? How are we talking about our sales goals? The tools that everyone was using beyond workshop, and then the goals, right? Like if there was a specific goal that this team had, I was able to help them communicate that. So everyone was communicating in like a same rhythm and not working in silos. We use calendars and things like that to really sync up on what is going out and when. And that foundation made scaling so much easier because you're not doing like these random active comms. Now you're all really communicating and have an ecosystem of how internal communications looks at your company. And so as our team continues to grow, that structure is really what allows us to keep stair-stepping and building upwards. And our culture is staying strong because of it. And that's really a great goal to have when you're building a comms plan. You want something that you can grow without losing clarity and, most importantly, connection across the company. And so we're much bigger now, right? We're crossing that threshold of about, well, I think we're over 100 employees, which is wild in just a year. And we didn't have to pause or like reset our communication strategy as we were growing. The things that we had put in place, from our messaging framework to leadership updates, how we shared information across teams, what channels, that really made it easier to keep growing and scaling internal communication. So if you're thinking about where to put your budget, this is the kind of outcome to build towards. Comms that isn't just about what can we do in Q1 of 2026, but like what can we do to set our team up for success later. So I want to have a little conversation about when do you know it's the right time for your company? And this is a question that we get quite often. And honestly, it's earlier than you think. I really wanted to set the foundation of when we decided to invest in internal comms to kind of share like our experiences and what you've found. So I would say if you're starting to hear things like, I didn't know about that, I felt out of the loop, or who's supposed to share this? This is all really your sign that it's time to invest in internal communications. And that can be something that goes from being someone's like side job or like part-time task to maybe someone's full-time focus. Because when someone owns communication, we all have probably experienced this, alignment really becomes like automatic for them. And that's exactly where we're going to start today, figuring out what's actually working and what's not in your internal comms. Because before you can build the strategy or build out the budget pitch, you have to know where you stand. So let's start here. So I do want to turn to the chat and get some questions going. How did you know it was time for your company? Did you all hear any questions like that? Did you have any moments where people were disconnected? Yeah, Allison said, I was hired during COVID. It took them less than 3 weeks to hire me full-time. That is incredible. Yeah, Chris, 95% of companies don't know when it's time and they miss out on a ton. That's certainly something that I've seen in prior roles where it's like, we really need to communicate about this, and there just wasn't a person in place or budget to make it happen. Yeah, I see. Another obstacle is lack of clear metrics or dashboards to show comms impacts. Yep, having those KPIs and goals that's really transparent is important to have. All right, let's keep pressing. So we've kind of set the foundation of like when you need to start thinking about comms, when you should start to invest in comms, right? Early is better than later. And before you get to that point, you're going to start to think about budget. And this is where you are starting from. So that first section was all about taking a clear look at what's working and what's not, and in your internal comms strategy today. And it's really less about the tools themselves and more about the story your comms are telling right now. So when you understand your starting point, essentially it's so much easier to make a strong case for where you need to invest next. So let's get some quantitative data straight out of the gate. We like to start our audit by running a comm survey. This is one of the first things that I did when I started at Workshop. It really allowed me to get a sense of how employees were feeling about communications and see the things that we wanted to update or change. You can run this survey to help with your 2026 strategy, and I would actually recommend sending out a comm survey to your team every 6 to 12 months. Right now at Workshop, we do it every 12 months, and that's been a really good cadence for us. But depending on your company size and how fast it's growing, maybe you want to do it twice a year. And this is really just going to give you a good benchmark to start with and a way to measure your efforts over time. So when I did that first survey, that was back in 2024, that was my benchmark year, right? That was where I really just got a sense of how things are performing. And then this year was the first year I was able to see how have things improved? Is there anything that we need to circle back on? Things like that. And if you're looking for a place to start, we have a really great internal comms survey template. This template is actually modeled after the one that I used and still use, and it takes about 15 minutes to complete, and it's broken down into 6 sections. And so you have everything from like company level comms to department level comms, your communications channels, and more, right? So that way, as the person is taking the survey, they have a really good look at what am I answering these questions about. And so those 6 questions will include a mix of scaling questions, like on a scale of 1 to 5, how strongly do you agree with the following statement? We like to include a lot of those questions to reduce the amount of like open response questions that are available. So that way folks can do it in their free time and aren't burdened with too much work. And this is really just going to help you understand how your employees feel about the communications that you're sending out and if they're getting too much or too little. The next thing that we want you to look at is your company's current goals and priorities. This is, I would say, probably one of the most mission critical things. You are going to help other employees understand and align with company goals, priorities, and values, right? So if you have like a department or company-wide all hands or town hall meeting, that's really your opportunity to take that information and make it plain to employees and figure out what's in it for them. How can they be a part of this? What does their role do to contribute to that specific goal? So in your audit over the next 30 days or so, I would really dive into like your mission and values and then demonstrate the ways that your goals or how you're communicating about those goals shows a real commitment to those company mission. And you can ask questions about like the company priorities and align communication strategy accordingly. That way you're positioning yourself as like a strategic partner when you're securing budget for internal communications. It's as simple as saying, hey, in order to reach this goal, our employees have to know where we're going and we have to communicate that regularly, not just once. The next thing you would consider doing is conducting a listening tour. This is also something I did when I first started at Workshop, and very practically it looked like sitting in our cube, which is kind of like our lunch area, sitting down, having a cup of coffee with someone and literally just listening. Tell me everything about communication from your department perspective. Are you sending out weekly or monthly newsletters? Do you find that your direct reports are not in the loop? Are people attending all hands? Are they retaining information? Like truly just being a sponge. And really what you're doing there is being a conduit to be like an audit of the state of internal communications in very specific departments or segments of the company and getting that baseline. So the best way that I would structure these is like a start, stop, continue. What are the things that we want to start doing because we're not doing them and maybe our employees are asking? What are those things that we just need to put a hard stop to? And what are the things that are actually working and we could keep doing them? So here's a few things to keep in mind when you're running your listening tour. The first is to choose a diverse audience. So you can get employees, department leaders, that sort of thing from different departments, people who have different roles and titles, even people who are in different locations, right? If you have like a headquarters or main office, consider getting on a Zoom or a Teams call with someone who doesn't live there. And that's going to be a great way to get a diverse group of people giving you insight. Someone in sales, for example, might think they're receiving a good amount of information, while someone in IT might think they're not getting enough. So, having diverse perspectives is really going to help you tell a clear story about how communication is working. This is also a great time to include those key stakeholders. This will help when you're trying to get that leadership buy in. So, make sure that you're not just getting like direct reports, but maybe getting some of those middle managers too. And again, like I said, those can just be like one-on-one interviews. Go grab a coffee, take a walk around the office, get on a Teams call, or you can even pull together like small focus groups, right? Like get 8 to 10 people in a conference room and really just, again, listen and prepare lots of open-ended questions for those discussions. Unlike your survey that you would send out via email, this is something where you're going to want a lot of contextual information. The next thing that you'll want to do is include those key stakeholders, use those small interviews or group opportunities to get feedback, and then preparing those open-ended questions for discussion. And I think the most important thing here is to listen to learn. This is one of our values at Workshop, and it's really about not immediately changing or correcting, especially when you're a new hire or perhaps you're new to like doing a listening tour. It can be really easy to be solutions oriented, versus focusing what's happening and what's sustained the company so far. Even if it's not perfect, you have been communicating, and so you want to make a space for that to still exist. And then finally, before building out your 2026 budget proposal, there's a list of tools that you should advocate for, right? We talked about that strategy being in black and white, but you're going to need some sort of tool to push out communications across teams and across the company. So what I would really encourage you to do is just create a list of all the internal communications tools and platforms you currently use today. Maybe it's one, maybe it's 10, maybe it's none at all, but really look at what is the tool's purpose, how is it functioning, and how are your users across the company adopting it, or are they actually using it themselves, right? There should be some data on the back end that you can see, hey, nobody's logging into this. Maybe we should evaluate that. This is again where I would take that start, stop, continue, and think about your tools in that context. So when you list every tool that you're using, so that could be like your email, your Slack, Teams, intranet, text, software, all of it, ask yourself, what is the purpose of each? Is it being used well? Are there overlaps or gaps? Do you have two tools that you're paying for that do the exact same thing? And sometimes you'll find tools that, like I said, no one's paying attention to, they're not really using it. And finding those insights can strengthen your budget case later, right? If you can say, hey, here's where we can save money by cutting out this tool and really leaning into this one more deeply. That's going to really help with your proposal. A few other things that you might want to look for in your current tools. Whoa, too fast. What are the pain points with your current tools? Is there any training or documentation, right? Do you have a spot on your intranet or sort of knowledge hub where employees can learn how to use them and adopt them? Is it a part of their employee onboarding experience? What department owns the tool? A lot of times you'll find that internal communications tools are not even owned by the internal communications department. Whose budget is that coming out of? Where do those communications requests come from? So when somebody emails you and says, hey, can you send out this email or can you send out this information? How are they contacting you? Are your communications generally proactive or are they reactive? And do we have easier ways to collect feedback? All of those things are going to be important when you're evaluating your current lineup of tools. That is all for me. I'm going to pass it to Kelsey now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here just for a bit, and she's going to talk about gathering data.
Yeah, perfect. Let me grab my presentation here. All the buttons to get it to how I want it to look. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Devin. That was great. And so excited now to kind of dig into building your case and winning it over with leadership. So now that we've gathered that insight, right? The data, the feedback, the tool audit, listening towards all that great stuff Devin talked about, it's now time to turn it into something tangible. So this is the part really where you move from here's what's happening to here's what we're going to do about it. Building your case, it's all about telling a clear, confident story, right? One that's going to show leadership that internal comms truly is the strategic partner that you already know you are. And honestly, this is where most comms budgets either succeed or get stuck. So, because you can have the smartest plan in the world, if you can't frame it in a way that resonates with leadership to prove the ROI on it, it's just going to sit there in a spreadsheet. So we're going to talk now about how to make your budget proposal impossible to ignore. All righty. So when creating your yes worthy budget proposal, your goal here is to make leadership see what internal comms really does and what internal comms does really well. So that means showing how your work boosts engagement, improves the employee experience, and really drives alignment across teams company wide. So you want to frame your proposal as a business case and not a wish list. So instead of saying, we'd love a new tool, it's here's how this investment will make the entire company more efficient. So this way, when leadership understands that internal comms actually saves time and money, you're halfway to your yes. So let's get a quick chat check first. How many of you had to make this case before? A budget proposal or making the case for a new system or a new tool? Go ahead and let us know in the chat. But if you have, you already know how much smoother it goes when you come in with data and strategy and not just that enthusiasm, right? Data for the win. Yep. And you may be thinking, this all sounds great, but what should I actually include in my internal comms budget proposal? So let's get into the structure of things. When you're building your internal comms budget proposal, we're going to go through what to include here and why each piece matters. We'll go by section, but really the big picture here is your proposal should read like a clear strategic story from start to finish. All right, let's start with the executive pitch, right? This is your elevator pitch, the why behind everything else. It's just one or two paragraphs, explain what you're proposing and what impact it will have across the entire organization. You don't need to bury people in the details yet. You'll get there later on in the proposal. At this stage, you're really just trying to kind of give leadership a reason to lean in here, right? So instead of we're asking for a new platform, you might say, hey, we're proposing a modern internal comm system to help employees stay aligned, informed, and really connected as we scale as a company. Short, confident, focused on the outcome. That's really the energy you want in your executive overview. All right. Next, we want to outline our current challenges, right? So be honest here, but be strategic. It's not a complaints list, but a diagnosis. Talk about the communication obstacles that are slowing things down or creating confusion in your organization. From all of those like initiatives Devin had talked about earlier, what have you uncovered with that, right? Maybe messages aren't reaching the right teams. Maybe engagement is low based on the surveys you ran, or the updates are getting lost in Teams or Slack. Frame this around a company-wide impact, right? This is costing us time, clarity, and really morale. When you frame comms gaps as business inefficiencies, it suddenly clicks for leadership, right? Because you're not just talking about messaging or communicating to employees, you're really talking about wasted time, missed alignment, and lost momentum. So if you can tie these gaps to those to real feedback from your survey or listening tour, some of those initiatives again that Devin mentioned earlier, that's great. The more the better, because that's really what makes the story hard to ignore. All right, so once you've outlined the challenges, you're ready to present your proposed solution. So there can be multiple answers to the same question. So focus on offering those you can clearly outline and connect to the challenges you've identified. When you link your solutions directly to these challenges, you're going to build a stronger and more cohesive case. So be sure to emphasize why this solution or a series of solutions that you're proposing is the best fit for your company. By tailoring your proposal to align with your organization's specific needs, this will make it more compelling and actionable. You don't need to get over technical here. Really focus on the value. Something like this proposed solution will streamline how we share updates. It's going to reduce duplicated work. It's going to keep everybody aligned, and it's really going to give us more visibility into engagement. Perfect. So let's talk about metrics for a minute, right? We have done whole webinars around the metrics you should be tracking. And I think I saw a Q&A come in about metrics specifically. So we'll dive into that definitely here at the end. But it's a huge kind of talking point, right? Because data tells the story leadership actually listens to. It shows that your work isn't just keeping people informed, but actually moving the business forward. And in a business setting, decision makers are always looking for that ROI, right? What return the company will gain from this investment. So it's important to clearly outline the value of your proposal, of what it brings in tangible terms. We recommend picking 3 metrics that your leadership team already cares about. This could be engagement rates, open rates from your email, employee satisfaction, or time saved, to name a few. If you can show that this investment will save an hour per employee per week, say, that's a really powerful number to present to leadership. So be sure to specify also how long and how frequently the investment will incur, whether that's annually, monthly, or otherwise. Also, highlight how this investment offsets the cost of your time currently or addresses the communication silos or some of those other challenges that have come up through like your survey or your listening tour. Providing this level of detail in your budget proposal really strengthens your case and demonstrates a thoughtful, really results driven approach. And at the end of the day, the clearer the ROI of the story, the easier it is for leadership to say yes. Okay, so now we've told them what we're going to do and why we want to do it. Next, we want to show them how. So lay out your implementation plan, not in an overwhelming detail, but enough to show that you've thought through logistics, right? We recommend identifying and detailing 3 specific ways you'll implement your strategy. So be sure to include who else will be involved, whether it's HR, employee experience, marketing, or any other key stakeholders. When you clearly define roles and responsibilities, you not only strengthen your plan, but it also helps create buy in from leadership and other stakeholders right from the beginning. And honestly, when it comes to implementation, the more the merrier. Having others in the process really helps create alignment right from the beginning and increases alignment right from the beginning and increases the likelihood of long-term success. Okay, so now it's time to outline the costs and resources required. Be really specific here, right? Whatever's required to maintain the channel or kind of the solution you're proposing and support the larger strategy, make sure to detail it in this section of your proposal. This is your opportunity to outline the full scope of your needs. You don't want to request only part of what's necessary and find yourself returning to decision makers 6 or even 3 months later to ask for additional approvals. And if you expect pushback, plan for that before you even kind of go in. Have a few options ready. This could be a pilot phase, right? Or a trimmed version of your ideal plan. One of my favorites is a good, better, and best option approach. This kind of shows flexibility without compromising your vision. You want leadership really walking away thinking, they've really thought of this. They've really thought this through and kind of thought through all of the options. We also have a great article that is in the resources section. If you want to dive a little deeper on how to get a larger budget for internal comms or employee engagement. Awesome. Okay. A significant part of demonstrating ROI is addressing how long it will take to see and feel a difference, right? Leadership, stakeholders, they really want to know when they'll start to see and feel the difference. So set realistic milestones. What are they going to notice in month one, right? What changes by quarter two? And what does full success of this new solution or tool that you're proposing like by the end of the year? If you can give leadership small, early wins to look for, it helps them stay confident in the investment. So you could say something like, by quarter two, we'll have clearer data on engagement. We're going to send out fewer duplicated messages. And by the end of year, we're going to have measurable proof of our improved alignment. This really helps your proposal turn it into something tangible. Again, it gives leaders something to visualize, and that's often what tips the scale toward yes. Whew. Okay. Deep breath here. We made it through kind of all of these pieces to include in your budget proposal. In the chat here, show of hands, who is ready to propose their comms budget? The good news is you don't have to build this alone. So we do have all of this that we've covered today in our budget proposal template that's really fully customizable to fit your team's needs and goals. Our goal really is to make it easier, faster, and more successful. So that is included in our resources section. You can have a budget proposal template that you can really customize to fit your company's needs. And if you'd like a personal version for your team, we will create a clear ROI doc that you can present internally to your company. So it will outline exactly how a tool like Workshop can fit into your 2026 strategy based on really your goals, size, and current setup. So if you're interested in working with us on getting a custom budget proposal and use case, drop budget in the chat, and Devin and I will definitely follow up after the session with more details. Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit for a second because part of getting your budget approved is knowing what you're actually advocating for, right? Not every tool belongs in your tech stack, and not every shiny new thing is going to solve a real problem. So let's talk through the main types of internal comms tools and how they fit together. This will really help you kind of prioritize what's worth the investment. And also, kind of as you're reviewing your current set of tools, these are the ones that we kind of advocate for and look for. We have said this before, but it is one of our favorite things, and it truly is true to us. We believe every company really can put together an intentional, effective internal comm strategy with just 4 tools. And all of them really should feel really familiar to your employees and super easy for you to use. So, in other words, you're likely already using these 4 tools today. So these are the 4 tools that we recommend as part of every internal comms tech stack. We'll go through each of them a little bit more in depth, but at a high level, an intranet, this is going to be for archival purposes, right? Resources that you get asked about often. A tool for instant messaging, this is going to be like your Slack or Teams, you really use for day-to-day communication. A tool for texting employees, right? This is great for frontline employees, deskless employees, in addition to urgent alerts. And email, of course. We like to use email as a primary method and then kind of amplify the messages to the other 3 tools to reach our employees where they're at. So let's chat about these a little bit more in depth. So let's talk about the role of an intranet or hub, right? A well-structured intranet acts as that centralized resource hub where employees always have a go-to place for critical information, whether that's HR updates, company updates, or shared resources, right? This is going to be a place to house all of your FAQs or your frequently asked questions. It can also serve as a digital water cooler, so showcasing company events, milestones, celebrations that really help employees feel connected to the broader organization. But with that said, an intranet is not an all-in-one solution, right? It's a great tool for housing information, but it works best in combination with other tools. So for example, it's not going to be ideal for those urgent updates or real-time notifications, which is where push channels like an SMS or an email really come into play. Think of your intranet as a complementary tool, right? So it's a static place to store that information while you use these other channels to kind of proactively push out timely and specific updates. Together, these tools really work together for a well rounded internal comms system that really works for everybody. Okay, so the next tool we want to talk about is a tool for instant messaging. This is going to be your Slack or Teams. This is great for that day to day back and forth communication. In many ways, also, this channel is a driver of culture. Here at Workshop, for example, we have a daily icebreakers channel that just has random questions at 2 p.m. that it kind of shoots off through an automation. And it really helps kind of keep everyone connected through lighthearted, fun interactions. But with that said, remember your instant messaging tool, again, shouldn't be used for critical updates. It's best for that kind of quickly deploying information or either gathering employee sentiment. We always recommend that if your message needs to live longer than 24 hours, your instant messaging platform probably isn't the best tool for that communication. The next is a tool for texting employees. So, SMS is still one of the most engaging forms of communication. Employees are still almost 50% more likely to open a text message than an email. It's a great way to reach remote, distributed, frontline, and non desk employees. When communicating with employees through text messages, though, a couple tips here. Keep it short and to the point, right? Keep it conversational. We always recommend, if you are texting your employees, to use a tool that leverages the two-way communication. Workshop does that with real-time replies and interactive text conversations with employees. So it's not just kind of generating text, you can get that two-way conversation. It really is a highly engaging channel because it's understood really to kind of be a personal inbox. So if texting employees becomes the only form of communication, engagement will drop. And if you are using a tool for texting employees, we recommend creating some kind of like SMS opt in form for employees that you can include in your onboarding as well. Okay, so let's talk about, of course, our favorite internal comms channel, email. So that trend survey that Devin mentioned earlier, we do it every year. We survey hundreds of internal comms professionals to just kind of see what's top of mind, what challenges they're facing, what tools they're using, or what they're looking to use in 2026. And so in this year's survey, we found that 81% of internal communicators ranked email as their most effective channel. But before we dive in, we want to throw a little poll out for to get a little bit more information. What tool are you using for internal comms today? So let's see if I can get this poll live. Awesome. So that should be live there. Go ahead and let us know what internal comms tool you're using today. There's a bunch of different ones out there, traditional ones like Outlook, Gmail, external tools. This is going to be like your HubSpot, MailChimp. We'll go through that a little bit more in depth here. So, email continues to be the most essential tool in internal comms. Not only did 81% of respondents rank it as their most effective channel, but 95% of respondents confirmed it as a core part of their strategy. And it makes sense why, right? Email's versatility and reach, they really are unmatched. You can deliver your messages directly to employees across time zones, roles, teams. It really is consistent and reliable way to connect with employees everywhere so that everyone receives kind of that same clear, well-crafted message at a time that works best for them. But when looking for an email tool, I mentioned this kind of a little during the poll, but not every tool was built the same and not every tool was built with internal comms in mind. So as you're building out your budget proposal and looking for new tools, you really want to find a tool that's built for internal comms, one that syncs with your HRIS system so you really can create your own lists and targeted messages. Okay, so one of the options there are a couple options for traditional and external tools. If you're currently using a traditional tool, this is going to be like excuse me, Outlook or Gmail only, you might be running into a few problems, right? First and foremost, with traditional tools, you really don't have access to any analytics. So you can't really see what messages are being opened or what employees are finding engaging with within the email. Distribution lists are also a pain point here, right? It's really hard to kind of segment your audiences and send targeted content to your employees. And then on the other end, external software tools like MailChimp or Constant Contact, these are absolutely amazing for marketing to prospects or customers, but they were never built with internal comms in mind. And so as a result, they can and will present serious barriers to kind of your day to day workflow, the way your employees receive information, and the success of your efforts. So, with these tools too, employees can even unsubscribe for your messages. I know a lot of folks are in open enrollment season right now. So, if you're sending out critical information like open enrollment and they've unsubscribed from your messages, that can present a huge challenge. Of course, we always say the absolute best solution for your internal comms strategy is an email software made for internal comms. And here's just a couple of reasons why. So, distribution lists, we have said this before, but our wish for you, for all of you, is that you never have to doubt your all company list ever again, and you never have to ask IT or marketing for it. So, an internal email platform like Workshop syncs up with Active Directory or your best source of employee data so you can automatically and reliably create your own distribution lists. Deliverability is another one we hear. So often emails sent from external email tools, again, they wind up in employees' spam or promotional folders. Plus, they can unsubscribe. So, with an internal email tool, you won't have to worry about spam folders or long processing delays. Your emails are delivered into employees' inboxes in really under minutes. Analytics too, with the right tool, you can go beyond open rate, click-through rate, and then really get into some of that data. Again, we talked about metrics earlier, but you can segment, your data by department, location, really drill down and see which employees are engaging with the email and getting the data that's actually relevant to you. And then lastly, also fun and engaging features. So with an internal email tool like Workshop, with internal comms in mind, there are features like pulse surveys. So you can gather kind of those quick feedback loops from employees, stock images to make your workflows easier. And also we do integrate with Canva. So you can pull your assets from Canva without leaving the Workshop platform. So if you do have any questions about the Workshop platform, please feel free to reach out to myself or Devin. Okay, lastly, I want to talk just a little bit about AI for a second, because this is really where internal comms is evolving. So, again, from that 2026 internal comms survey, more than half of the comms pros who took that they're already using AI to speed up their workflow. I'm curious in the chat as we're kind of going through this, how are you using AI in your work today? We've seen through this survey that the teams seeing the most success with AI, they're not replacing people with AI, but they're using it to give people time back, right? So, a lot of the ways we're seeing this is for writing, translation, summarizing feedback, or automating those tasks. So, at Workshop, we're always continuing to build AI features specifically for internal comms, ones like content generation. So, you can go from crafting better subject lines to rewriting those dense updates, data insights to surface quick AI powered summaries and patterns for your emails. And of course, workflow magic. These are going to be small but mighty features like language translation, image suggestion to match your messages, and so much more. So, as you think about your 2026 comms strategy and as you're building out your budget proposal, make sure that every tool you consider next year has some sort of level of AI capability built in, because that's what's going to keep your team efficient, scalable, and ready for what's next. Okay, before we dive into some questions, I know there's some good ones there. I want to just zoom out for a minute and talk through a few key takeaways from today. So, the first one is start early and start with clarity, right? Build your foundation early, listen, survey, align early so communication can scale really alongside the company culture as you grow. Second, build your case like a business case, right? Use data, goals, outcomes, not just needs or nice to haves, really pull in some of those metrics. When you can show how internal comms drives engagement, efficiency, or ROI, leadership stops seeing it as a cost and really start seeing it as a strategy. And then finally, invest in the right tools with the right story. So tools alone are not going to create clarity, right? Strategy does. But when you have the right platforms or tools in place, you can deliver and measure and prove your impact every single day. So these are the three key takeaways that I think Devin and I would really love to leave you with today. And, and with that, I think we're going to move into some questions. I know we've got some great ones here, so I will stop sharing my screen and I'll invite Devin back up here.
I'm back.
Hello, hello. Okay, I wanted to dive in, Devin. I know Peggy, when we were talking through some metrics and stuff, and this has come up a bit, she had asked what are the best KPIs or what are the best kind of like metrics to track? In your experience, what have been the ones that have been the most helpful, or what would you recommend?
Yeah, that's a really great question. When I started out, I kept it really simple. So it was things like open rates, click through, how long are folks staying on your emails specifically, right? Are they skimming through information or are they staying for an extended period of time? And extended is like a minute or two, right? And so that's really where I started with my KPIs, but now they're becoming a bit more dynamic where now I'm looking at how can I tie my goals as an internal communicator to business objectives. And so now it's really more about like adoption and understanding. And so as Workshop starts to roll out some really exciting new AI features, I'm looking at what is the overall understanding or sentiment around AI when it comes to Workshop employees. And that's something that's really cool for internal communicators to manage because, again, I can send out correspondence, I can look at how often people are referring to something, how long they're reading it, and I can even spin up a quick survey to ask those questions very plainly. And I think owning that has been really cool. So I say you can really create them in a way that makes sense for you, but it's always a great place to have open rates, click throughs, read times. I love those ones.
Yeah. I also would add to that too. We always suggest mixing both qualitative and quantitative data, right? Because going back to the storytelling, that's going to show a larger story and kind of the full scope of those KPIs.
Yeah, agreed.
Awesome. So let's see here. Someone asked, apart from a budget proposal, how do you inspire or persuade a non-receptive leadership team to see the importance of internal comms?
Ooh. I mean, I think we've definitely hit on it a couple of times in the chat where storytelling, tying back to business goals, are going to be some really great starters. But I think for me, the biggest thing is culture, right? When you have a company that is connected and informed and feels really inspired by the work that they're doing every single day, right? Not every single day is perfect, but at least you have like a North Star that you're collectively moving in the same direction for. That drives and shapes the culture of work, right? We talk a lot about happy Mondays at Workshop, and being able to kind of hit and meet all of those things is how you too at your company can have happy Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays. And so that was something that I would really elevate is like, do you want this to be a place where people want to work, where they want to spend 40 hours or so of their week each week? And the way that we do that is being really communicative and thoughtful and connecting the way that people are feeling and capturing that sentiment from them, and then using it to shape our goals as a communications team.
Oh, I love that. And
Mhm.
kind of on that same like leadership track, how would you handle it when leadership wants results immediately from like some of your efforts, but doesn't understand like the long-term value of internal comms?
Right, right. I mean, earlier in the presentation today, I talked about those quick wins, right? Within 30 days, I was able to list, here's what I did, this, and this. And it's one thing to sort of like kick off a survey or to start a podcast. It's another to actually start to see that impact the culture and the way that you're communicating internally. And so that's how I would position your goals to your leadership team. Break them up into this is what we can realistically accomplish in like 30 days or even a quarter. And here's what's going to take a little bit longer. So then when I think you start to kind of like stair step and get into like, you're going to see this right away, but you're not going to see the results of it until later. I think that's a great way to make it feel like you're making steps because you are, but really, you know, it's a long-term game.
Yeah, no, I love that. And kind of on that same thing of when you are testing new tools or say that you have implemented that new tool, I know you had said like quick wins, but like what kind of feedback should you collect from your employees on some of these new initiatives?
Mhm. Yeah. So, I mean, aside from the actual survey where we did ask both qualitative and quantitative questions, we use like our instant messaging tool Slack as a way to collect feedback from our employees specific to our internal podcast, which is called Talk Shop. It's a play on the word workshop, if you didn't get that. And we literally just asked them, like, did you like this episode? Was it too long? Was it too short? One of the really cool things was we had an employee who's not even on the comms team. He created a Slack channel that was called Talk Shop Talk, where people, after they listened to a new episode of our internal podcast, could go and be in this community of folks who were like, what did you think about it? Oh, I love this part. And it was really cool to like see that come alive and see that still maintained to this day without like comms being the whole owner of it. And I think that, again, if we go back to the culture pieces where you really start to see how comms doesn't have to be like the hoarder of all the ways that people are communicating internally. But if we can give people platforms and avenues and channels to do so, you're really going to see it start to sustain on its own, which is really cool.
Awesome. Well, I know we're almost at time. I want to end on one last question, Devin. What's one quick win somebody could try this quarter to start improving comms even before maybe they have a budget in place?
I think it's going to be surveys for me. I think the
Yeah.
more that you can get that employee voice and just make people feel seen and heard is a really great place to start. And it's free to do that. So, yep.
Well, awesome. Devin, thank you so much for joining me today. I always love running webinars with you. It's
Same.
the best. Thank you, everyone, as well, who have joined us. We will send out a follow-up with all of the resources that we covered today, the recording and all of that good stuff. Thank you, and we hope to see you at our next webinar.
Yeah. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.